Hey Steno peeps, Jen back with a brand new dictation. Today we're going to be doing some Q&A. This is going to be between a landlord and an attorney about an eviction lawsuit. So I'll be speaking in a lower voice for the attorney and a higher voice for the landlord. This is at no particular speed, so set your speed controller to the desired speed that you would like to do this dictation, and let's dive in. Ready? Begin.
Good morning. Could you please state your full name for the record?
Good morning. My name is John Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Can you provide your date of birth?
Sure. My date of birth is March 15th, 1975.
And what is the address of the apartment in question?
The address is 1742 Maple Street, apartment 4B in Springfield.
Great. Now I'd like to ask you about the reason for the eviction lawsuit. Can you explain why you initiated this action?
The primary reason for the eviction lawsuit is that the tenant has consistently failed to pay rent on time for the past 6 months, despite several notices and attempts to resolve the issue amicably. The rent arrears have accumulated significantly.
How many notices did you provide to the tenant before deciding to proceed with the lawsuit?
I provided the tenant with 3 formal notices. The first was a written warning about the overdue rent. The second was a final demand for payment, and the third was a formal notice of eviction. Each notice was delivered according to the requirements of the lease agreement and local regulations.
Can you describe the content of these notices?
Certainly. The first notice was a reminder of the overdue rent and included a request for payment within a specific period of time. The second notice was a final demand stating that if the rent was not paid by a certain date, further legal action would be taken. The third notice was the formal eviction notice, which provided the tenant with the required notice period to vacate the property.
Did you have any communication with the tenant between sending these notices and filing the lawsuit?
Yes. There were several communications. I attempted to discuss the situation with the tenant and offered to set up a payment plan to address the arrears. However, the tenant was unresponsive to my attempts to negotiate and did not make any payments.
Were there any issues with the condition of the property that might have contributed to the tenant's inability to pay rent?
Not that I'm aware of. I conducted regular inspections of the property and maintained it in good condition. There were no reported issues or maintenance problems that could have impacted the tenant's ability to pay rent.
Has the tenant provided any reasons or justifications for the mispayments?
The tenant did mention some financial difficulties, but they did not provide any formal documentation or evidence to support their claims. Their explanation was not sufficient to justify the failure to pay rent.
Can you provide details about the lease agreement and any specific clauses related to non-payment of rent?
The lease agreement clearly outlines the rent amount, payment due dates, and penalties for late payments. It includes a clause that specifies that if rent is not paid within a certain number of days after the due date, the landlord has the right to terminate the lease and seek eviction.
Were there any previous instances of late payments or breaches of the lease by this tenant?
There were a few instances of late payments in the past, but the tenant usually made the payments after receiving a reminder. However, the current situation is more severe with repeated late payments and a significant amount of arrears.
Have you had any interaction with the tenant's attorney or legal representatives regarding this matter?
No, I have not had any direct interactions with the tenant's attorney. All communications have been handled through formal notices and written correspondence.
What is the current status of the eviction process?
The lawsuit has been filed, and we are currently waiting for the court to schedule a hearing. Once the hearing takes place, we will present the evidence and seek a court order for the eviction if the court rules in our favor.
Is there anything you'd like to add regarding this eviction lawsuit?
I would just like to emphasize that the decision to file for eviction was not made lightly. I attempted to work with the tenant and resolve the issue without resorting to legal action. Unfortunately, the situation has reached a point where the eviction is necessary to recover outstanding rent and ensure the property is occupied by a reliable tenant.
Thank you for providing this information. We will review the details and proceed accordingly.
Thank you. I appreciate your attention to this matter. Okay, that was a fun one. So hopefully you got some good practice in there with some new words that you maybe discovered or even briefs that you can continue to practice. I know these are the different types of topics that can come up in court, so be sure to keep practicing and going over the ones that you're finding trouble with, and I'll be sure to see you on the next dictation.